Welcome, everyone, to Align, where we help you live your best life by being most authentic to yourself, being aligned with your true self, aligned with others, and your desired outcome. Today, our first episode, super excited to announce that we'll be talking about authenticity and vulnerability with Ajay. And I think it'll be really helpful for the audience to know how we met Ajay, if you want to share first.
Yeah, we were both sitting at the bar at Foreign Cinema, a very nice restaurant here in San Francisco, and I think you were working like the day before Thanksgiving, and I kind of made fun of you for doing that. And then that struck up a conversation, and we hit it off really well.
Yeah, and we instantaneously nerded out, talking about a lot of things that I think I was so fascinated about everything you've been doing in tech. And I think I was super naive thinking there's only limited things that AI can do. It's only about programming actions. It can't read human behavior. There's no replacement for decoding human behavior with AI. And then I learned so much from you based on your work. So, would love for the audience to hear more about what you have done in the past. And I think that way people will better understand why you're such a perfect person to talk about being real, being authentic, and being vulnerable.
Yeah, so I make dialogue systems. I started a company called Speak With Me off of research we did in college at Carnegie Mellon. And dialogue systems find things for you, do things for you, and speak back to you in a witty manner. Um, and as time has gone by and we've worked with many customers, we've enhanced the system with emotional understanding and emotional expressivity. Um, and I've learned intimately like how good of a pattern matcher AI can become. Uh, our emotion recognition pieces, if you're genuinely angry and you try to fake happiness,
Mm.
it will not detect happiness. It will detect anger.
Mm.
So, we're thinking of uses for good for that technology. And yeah, it's been a powerful journey. And it's also, of course, led us to go deeply into human psychology as well.
Mm. Awesome. So I think it would be helpful to first define, what does it mean to be authentic, and why is it so important?
I think being authentic is speaking your truths, your harshest truths, having safe spaces to speak your deepest and harshest truths without judgment, with a listening friend, uh, and then having someone who's able to absorb that, listen, um, and respond to that in a manner that is psychologically safe.
Mm. Yeah. Safe being yourself. I agree and echo that. I think it's so important for everyone to find their gift. And oftentimes you already know what it is. You think back of when you were a child, there's things that you were naturally good at, naturally gifted at, but then whether it be society, your family, you've just been put off a different path. But I always think it's so important to find and use your gift, because when everyone, think about it, the entire community or world uses their gift, we'd be a much more harmonious society. There wouldn't be any, oh, what are your intentions? What are my intentions? We're all in alignment. And, to the point of this podcast, the only way for you to be happy and successful is to be in alignment. So totally agree with you. And I know we've talked about this and we both agree, you can't shove your emotions, negative emotions. Ajay, what do you think about that? Why do you think it's not productive to shove down negative emotions?
So if you are feeling your feelings, it's ideal to feel both your positive and negative emotions. If you're shoving your negative emotions under a rug or not feeling them,
Mhm.
um, you're actually putting yourself into a world of scarcity rather than a world of abundance. Um, and, it's because at some point, everything you've dusted up under the rug is this big dust ball that you
Yeah,
start sneezing and coughing and getting a cold or flu from.
right, right. Hear you. Definitely. Sorry, was there something? No, okay. No, I was just going to add, I agree with you. I think it's so important. The only way, and I've learned the hard way, you have to feel it to heal it. You can't eat it away.
Yes.
You can't drink it away. You can't sleep it away by yourself or with someone else. Like there's nothing you can do besides feel it, right? So I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if you've had the same experience, like even for myself through COVID, when I was finally stuck at home and safe at home, sorry, when I was finally safe at home and able, well, I had no choice to really go into my inner demons. 10 years later, things I thought I was over came back up. Right. And I think we're always on this journey of like running away from negative emotions. And as a person that I try to be super optimistic, I feel like I was guilty for having negative emotions. But I've definitely learned that, hey, even if it's been 10 years, that dust ball 10 years only gets bigger and bigger and bigger and magnified. But Ajay, did you have a similar experience?
Um, yeah, I would say when I first started out in entrepreneurship, there's culture of optimism there,
Yes.
where everything's always great. Um, you're always crushing it, and then you look at reality is you're always like a hair away from a bunch of bricks falling on top of your head.
Right.
And sometimes those bricks do fall on top of your head, and how you handle that and recover from that is really important for your own mental health and well-being, as well as, you know, as CEO of your own company,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as well as, you know, handling your employee morale and team morale. Because I've never met a leader who hasn't had a ton of setbacks on their journey. You know, we can look at Formula One this past weekend. George Russell almost won that race twice. Mercedes bungled the pit stop, and he ended up finishing ninth, but he still passed his job interview.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, even from a business perspective, right? To your point with entrepreneurs, I think there's this the idea that you have to be perfect in order to be accepted, or you can't make a single mistake. I have not seen, from my experience, investors ding you for making a mistake or having a month or two, or even sometimes years of bad performance, but they will ding you when you're not authentic about what happened. Right? What are you doing to fix or rectify the problem? What are the measures that you have made to prevent this from happening again? And have you changed your investment process? Right? So I echo all those terms, whether it be in entrepreneurship, VC, alternative investing, and traditional finance. That's the same thing that I feel people don't realize. Authenticity and being honest is actually a safe space, and people give you credit for that, versus if you try to hide behind the scenes and lie your way through. To your point, you're going to get caught, or the train will just hit you.
Yeah.
So hear you on that. So how can, especially if someone has been living in a little shell for a while, how can someone identify if and when they're being authentic? How does it feel? What are you doing?
So for me personally, I feel my pulse rate is low. I'm at peace.
Yeah.
I'm speaking in the manner I'm speaking with all of you now. Um, I don't feel any anxiety, right? So the number one tell for me personally is speaking from a place of peace without feeling any anxiety.
Yeah, and you had a really good description about that. You compared yourself to a German Shepherd when you're not authentic.
No. So that's actually, yeah. So I had to train myself to become a bit of a German Shepherd police dog to deal with
Mm-hmm.
people who don't deal with me in a
Okay.
courageous and vulnerable manner.
Got it. Got it. Perfect. Super helpful. Just to give everyone a different perspective. So, and also, Ajay, this is also your recommendation. If you don't know what you're like when you're being authentic, look yourself in the mirror, check yourself, right? Like when, do you do it with a friend? When you're being honest, what is your body language? What's the posture? What does it feel? And like record it, like make note of it. And then when you feel like you're, feeling weird feelings and are authentic, record that. So, and over time, you'll get a pattern of how you feel and how you think and how you act when you're authentic. But just to give everyone different perspective, when I feel my most authentic, I feel free, like limitless, like a soaring eagle, like nothing's stopping me. I am excited. Like there's a piece in me where it's more of I can figure it out. like everything is figure outable, and that's this feeling. But like I am excited, I'm on a general adrenaline rush. I am not as calm per se as you, Ajay, but I definitely don't feel any negative emotion. That's my gut check. Like when I'm being authentic, I don't feel any like bad energy. I don't feel angry, upset, fearful. All those things kind of disappear.
Yeah, I'd say another way to tell that you're in this safe space for yourself um, is when you're acting like your childhood self.
Yes.
You know,
Good check.
so you think about how behaved as a kid without a filter, and you're smiling and happy, speaking without a filter, not really worried about anything. When you're like that, you're being authentic.
Yep, I'm with you on that. So why does it feel so scary to be vulnerable? Why do we, I mean, I definitely shied away from it. Why do we shy away from
Well, so there's two types of leadership. Joy, you can lead from a place of joy and unity, or you can lead from a place of fear, manipulation, guilt, shame, and blame.
it?
And the problem is that when you're vulnerable with the wrong people, they will frequently attack your vulnerabilities. And instead of accepting your vulnerabilities, they will attack them and then try to use them to manipulate you, to either oppress you, dominate you, or get you into an approval seeking mode.
Mm.
All of which causes you to not behave authentically, and to essentially start to become a victim of manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
And um, and then that creates um, a space where it's an unsafe space,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and it's very dangerous to speak your truth. So you start feeling, potentially like your voice is being silenced.
Right.
And the degree of the attack, is basically also determining the degree your voice is being silenced.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. So I agree with you that oftentimes we're so scared of being vulnerable is because when you've done it in the past, it wasn't a positive outcome for you, right? I'm with you on that. I think like I even think back on
Mm-hmm.
why I shut down was when something happened when I was in second grade and I like shared my feelings. I thought I was vulnerable, or like I wasn't fully vulnerable, but I like shared like a tidbit of a feeling and I didn't get the reaction that I wanted back. So that just trained me from that moment on, like, okay, it is not good to be vulnerable. There's no need to share. But I think that the biggest problem is we oftentimes create stories of why certain things happen, right? And at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
I think when I think back, I was like, oh, I got rejected for who I am. Like I got rejected for who I truly am as a person. Versus when I actually revisit years later that specific moment, I wasn't rejected because of me. I was rejected because I was projected a kind of like a egotistical, like, oh, I think I'm so kind of cool personality that wasn't me. So I think, if we look back into events that happened to us, the meaning you give to everything that happens to you will determine your reality and how you shape it. So I definitely encourage anyone, when you have these moments of, tension or things that really changed your life, even if it's really small things, revisit that and see, like, have you framed the story properly? Is that really the truth? Or have you attached a meaning that's actually not what happened?
Yeah. There's actually a quote I love that's I every story has a happy ending. It depends on where you choose to end the story.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Or sometimes, especially through COVID, right? We got plenty of people who are looking at COVID like it's a bad thing that happened to us. And there's those who are trying to make the most of it, and see like, how can we turn this into something positive? Maybe it's next year, maybe it's 5 years from now, right? But to your point, it's where do you end the story? So I understood. I think we kind of covered this, but Maybe a little differently. Oh, okay. So, we talked a little bit more about what does vulnerability look like or feel like? How do you know you're being it? Um, how do you know when to be vulnerable with somebody? Like, what's the gut check? What's the pass? To your point, there's certain people who candidly don't deserve you to be super vulnerable because they could, manipulate you to a different, to their own benefit and to your detriment. So what's the filter?
Um, you know, I struggle with this myself still, and I think first gut check is, how do I feel around this person?
Mm,
Do I feel safe around this person? If yes, share something vulnerable.
yeah,
And it doesn't have to be your deepest, darkest vulnerability. It could be something less dangerous than that,
right.
right? And see how they react to that.
Mhm.
If you're in a genuinely safe space, they will listen to you, they will hear you, they will probably ask questions about the experience. um, Look for cues that they're listening, that you're not being shut down in response.
Mhm.
um, in many ways, if you're just shut down and they don't attack the vulnerability, that's way better than if they attack the vulnerability,
Right.
right? And I would say, given the scope of people out there, you're going to find great listeners and deeply compassionate people in one end of the spectrum. Then you're also going to find some people who just shut you down
Mhm.
because, there's a very large number of people who aren't feeling their negative feelings, as we discussed earlier,
Yeah.
right? And you can still have some degree of limited safety with them as long as they're not attacking your vulnerability.
Mhm.
And then there's the really truly manipulative people who will attack your vulnerability. So see what they do,
Mhm. I feel
um, before reveal something that's really deeply dangerous.
Mhm. Agreed. I do the same thing. Still a work in progress always, right? Because I think when you live in abundance, you sometimes falsely assume that everyone else also lives in abundance, right? And to your point,
Hmm.
you just really need to test, take baby steps, right? Share something kind of vulnerable, and then build your way up as you get more data points, and you feel like I can really open up to this person. But one thing I definitely learned is trust your gut. I know everyone says that, but every single time my gut says no, don't, I used to think, well, I have no proof. Why would I ever think that of this person? Why would I ever not give him a chance? Or why would no, you don't, your gut knows it feels and senses things that your five senses can't. So trust your gut.
Yes.
And there's never harm in taking time to get to know someone, right? Taking time to be vulnerable, but like definitely trust your gut. It doesn't need proof. The other thing though is make sure it's a difference between, are you passing judgment quickly or is it really your gut? So for me, there are many cases where best friends of mine, when I first met them, I saw them, it was immediate judgment. And it was more of a self-protection. Like I didn't even talk to the person. I just looked at them like, oh, they probably look like they're super egotistical, or they're this or that. I was passing judgment. So I would highly recommend, before you close someone off or, think you can't be vulnerable with someone, have a conversation with them. Like even if it's 5 minutes and see where it goes. But like there's a huge difference between passing judgment versus if your gut's just saying, bad juju, stay away.
Yeah. And there are amazing people that look all ways, right?
Yeah.
So
And from all backgrounds and all areas of life and all what you call like status, whether it be social, professional, you name it, just because it's human nature to think, oh, this person's a PhD, this person's a expert in, I don't know, let's see, AI, right? This person is this is that. Accolades don't really mean much besides
yeah.
making people think, oh, I can trust this person, right? So trust your gut. That's definitely the takeaway on that. What I think we kind of talked, yeah, we talked a little bit about this. So we discussed what happens when you don't let yourself feel your feelings, and it gets projected out, but 10 times worse if you don't. Ajay, you had a really good tactic where, you had a process for this. So share with the audience, because I think it'd be really helpful.
The process for what specifically?
Yeah, so you mentioned
Let's.
that sometimes it takes you time to,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, right. So, I personally have a delay in feeling my feelings a lot of the time, especially in the moment. And, there's a part of me that feels a need to give an answer right away to
Mhm.
someone. And, this frequently happens in business negotiations. It can happen in dating. Um, and so the first thing is to be aware of what your delay is,
Mhm.
right? I believe a large number of people have a delay in feeling their feelings. And if you know what your delay is, you can actively journal your feelings over time and basically exercise your brain to reduce that cycle time.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I reduced my delay from 2 months to 2 hours, um, over the years. Now, 2 hours is still potentially problematic in the moment. So, um, you know, if there's someone who's, requesting an answer about something and I haven't assessed my feelings yet, I do things like, let me get back to you on this. I need some time. Let me get back to you tomorrow. Let me get back to you next week. I can't give you an answer right now. I don't know how I feel right now. I'll
Mhm.
get back to you later. So that's honest and authentic, and it prevents one from making decisions before they genuinely know how they feel.
Mhm. Mhm. And I'm sure there are many times, I've definitely personally gone through this too. Ajay, I'm sure you have as well, where, people put on the pressure cooker. People are
Hmm.
impatient. They have, and keep in mind, the more manipulative or the more not in alignment someone is with you, they're going to put on pressure. They're going to,
The more pressure they'll put,
right,
yes.
exactly, because they're just
Yeah.
trying to, get you to crash, right? So to your point, oftentimes you're not going to get a safe space from certain people, or you're going to get a response that you don't want, that's not good for you, doesn't help you grow. It's up to you as the individual to create that safe space. So one rule of thumb I
Yeah.
do is, right, like one rule of thumb is, say for example, I don't, this is not true, but say for example, I have an aunt that has a horrible marriage, gone through like 3 divorces, none of them were happy, none of them were successful, and she's out here projecting, saying like, this is what you should do in your dating life, this is what you should go, this is the process, this is what you should go for. My thing is always look at the area that you're getting lectured and look at that person. Does that area of that person's life resonate with you? Do you want to be where that person is? Right? So just for example, like, would you ever work with a trainer that's not fit? Probably not, right? So when you do get attacked or you get, criticized for being vulnerable, look at the areas of that person who are, if they're not emotionally, open with themselves, they don't accept themselves, they're going to project on you. So don't take every criticism to heart, and be very selective of what type of criticism you take in. That's something that has helped.
Yeah, and then I think you touched on another important point here, which is make sure your inner dialogue is how do I feel,
Mm,
not how should I feel.
yes. That's a really, yes.
And until the answer to how do I feel is a genuine answer for you, do not give an answer. Buy time. And in fact, the stall and delay tactic is a fantastic way to sniff out a manipulative person,
Yes.
because a genuine person will give you the time and space to make your decision,
Mhm.
and a manipulative person will just up the pressure.
But that's a really good point. Anything, right? It could be personal, could be professional, right? Making you, like, forcing you to make a decision ASAP. So check, even could be in your family, right? Like check every area in your life for situations like that. The pressure cooker. Um,
Yeah. And identify also when people are telling you how you feel, because
mm,
that's also a sign that they're not listening to you,
Right. I like
and
that.
a sign, yeah. So, uh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's-
Or they're also the term gaslighting as well, right? Whether it be projecting, gaslighting, check that, because for sure, if the person is actually showing behaviors that you call saying that you're doing things that they're actually doing, check that, and make sure it's not just a projection on their end, for sure. We,
yeah. Well, so the beauty is that if you are dealing with someone who is deeply narcissistic,
yeah,
when they tell you how you're feeling, they're telling you how they're feeling. So
yeah,
you can start to leverage that to turn the tables on them. But that's a topic for another podcast.
yes, that's true. That's true. We talked a bit about business, and there's always this debate, right? Like, should business and emotions be separate? Can you separate it? And we say emotion because, again, the whole point is about being authentic, and being authentic is being letting yourself feel your feelings and sharing your authentic feelings. So, what do you think about that? Should business and emotion be separate?
Uh, for me personally, it's not really separate. Um,
Mhm.
I'm super invested in my own entrepreneurial ventures, and there are feelings attached to them. They're real, they're deep, and they need to be honored.
Mhm.
And I think that's absolutely true for anyone in professional sports or entrepreneurship. Um, and it's kind of the same thing we said earlier. If you're denying your feelings, then you're putting yourself in a place of scarcity. So this thing about it's just business, it's not personal.
Mhm.
Um, that's it's kind of a tactic to try to you know avoid feeling the pain of that moment.
Right, right. And you talked a little bit about removing celebration before. Like if you remove the emotion, you remove the celebration. You want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So I reflected last night and I realized that uh, only a very small number of people in my circle are celebratory on a regular basis and celebratory of themselves and others around them.
Yeah.
And the best part about celebration is that when you celebrate someone else, you create very fertile ground to create joy and unity and a safe space with them.
Hmm.
And you also give them room to celebrate you.
Hmm.
And I honestly feel like I don't see celebration enough in our society today.
Hmm.
Instead, there's the counterpart to it, which is jealousy. So, let's say you've achieved a dream of yours,
Hmm.
right? I want to celebrate your dream, right?
Hmm.
But if I wanted that same dream and I'm not there yet, another emotional reaction is envy and jealousy.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so that's actually creating scarcity, because if you think about it, if I celebrate your success of your dream, and let's say it's a dream I also wanted, um, that creates fertile ground for me to ask for help from you
Hmm.
on how I could, you know, further my own dream.
Yeah.
But if I react with envy or jealousy, then I'm shutting myself out uh, of 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 that abundant state.
Yeah. I'm with you on all points. I think the first thing you mentioned was the lack of celebration. So I agree with you when it comes to the super type A, the entrepreneurs, the professionals, right, who are just going from point A, point B, but just running on this perpetual treadmill that never ends, right? The other hand, I see social media where people are celebrating the wrong things, right? Like very superficial things that there's lack of meaning, and that's okay. You're allowed to do that, right? But just know it, that you're celebrating something that's a little bit more superficial and not as meaningful, right? That's one. Secondly, to your point about the jealousy aspect, completely with you. I would always say check what the people closest to you that you consider friends. What is their reaction when you win? Are they celebrating with you? And what is their reaction when you hurt? Are they down there with you, right? Because to your point, I don't think there are a lot of people who can't separate their own personal experience and journey with a close friend, right? Like the art of comparison, it's always been there. It's kind of, it's embedded in human nature, but I think it's so important to keep in mind that it's not a competition, because everyone's journey is so different and unique. Like, there's literally no way you can compare. And if anything, to your point, successful people are like the ones who started up themselves, entrepreneur. If you notice the ones who really make it, they all live in abundant state, because they wouldn't have gotten started if they didn't. If they thought, oh, say for example, you're a basketball player, right? Like, oh, I'm not good enough. Like, I can't do it. Like, look at this guy, look at that guy. I'm never going to be as good as Michael Jordan. I'm never going to be good as Kobe Bryant. Like, what's the point? If you had that mindset, that fear and lack mindset, you would never even try, right? So if you look at people who are on top, they always have abundant mindset. And because they're abundant mindset, they're willing to help, and they're willing to mentor, they're willing to teach. If you see someone winning, it just means, hello, there's proof it works. Hello, there's proof you can do it, right? So I'm with you on that, right? And it's not even like we have to share a pie. There's just so many vectors. I mean, especially now, look at COVID, right? All the new business coming up. Yes, there's a lot of things that have shut down for sure. And I see it more of a transmission of energy. You never lose something. It just transforms into something else. So agree with you. I think it's so important to check yourself. When you have feelings of jealousy, ask yourself, is this the best way to handle it? And secondly, the people around you. You know, sometimes, again, you need to create a safe space for yourself where if you're feeling that energy or that jealousy, that competition, take a little space. People will respect you if they're good for you, and they, to your point, they're not manipulative. They will give you the space that you need.
Yeah, and I mean, too much comparing yourself to others is the fastest way to make yourself miserable.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And that's also, actually, I might want you on my other episode about the art of comparison. So keep that thought, Ajay. We have more to come. But super helpful. Let's talk practical steps now, so people on the audience can find ways to be more authentic and be more aligned with themselves, the other people, and their outcomes. So 3 areas let's discuss. First is, how do you get alignment with yourself? Second is, how do you get alignment in your career? And third is, how do you get alignment in your romantic relationships? So Ajay, I want to start with alignment with ourselves.
So for alignment with ourselves, I start with thinking about times when you were feeling happy and joyful and free. And what were you doing then? What were you, in my case, it was always either on a bike ride or some wandering into nature. And so I go on nature walks. Yeah. Well, that background's from one of my walks. Yeah. So I retreat into nature, and, it's my space to zen out. And when I zen out, I dream, I think, I connect the dots. I'm my happiest, most creative, most free self. So, and because there's no one around me, I'm not feeling the thoughts of others around me. So
Yeah.
I'm a bit of an empath. So, in this circumstance of not being around others is actually freeing for me.
Love it.
So,
what I would add there is how to get alignment with yourself. So everything we do, every action is in a pursuit of a feeling. We're chasing a feeling. So say, for example, people say, I want money, right? Well, dig a little deeper. Why do you want money? Are you using it to buy your parents their dream penthouse? Or are you trying to buy a new Ferrari, right? So is it a feeling of giving back, family values? Do you want to feel like you could provide and protect? Is that the feeling that you want to give? And also not protect, but give back to your family for everything they've ever done for you, right? Or if the Ferrari is, do you want it to demonstrate power, or that you're, that you're modern, or you can, are you trying to track certain things with it, right? Whether it be the girls, the lifestyle, you name it. So I would always say to get in alignment is, whenever you want something, try to identify the feeling you're trying to chase. And then once you get the feeling, you could understand, okay, is this really what I want? Is it the best action to take given the feeling I want? And if not, you can easily pivot. But at the core of every action is still a feeling. So figure out the feeling you're trying to chase.
Hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How do you get into alignment in your career?
Um, so I can speak from the perspective as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Um, leading with joy and unity creates a safe space. And then, you can perform at your highest level when you feel safe, because you can have the hard conversations when you're making something new and, well, this isn't working, or this is going to take longer than I thought, or I'm encountering this new problem. Um, so, it starts with psychological safety, and then you go after your high performance in this nice bubble of psychological safety.
Mm. Yep.
Yeah.
One thing I always tell, whether it be mentees, clients, people that I help life coach, is do a SWOT analysis on yourself. So have whether piece of paper, four quadrants, and I don't care. You can type it, you can whatever you want to do, right? You can drink while you do it. Doesn't matter. Just create to your point, a safe space, a comfortable position, and I want you to write down all your strengths. And it's not just things that you like do well or like you're good at, but like, for example, you're a good listener, you're humble, you're empathetic. I also want the soft skills. So what are you naturally good at? Like, you don't have to like second think about it, right? Your weaknesses is exactly the opposite. What do you suck at? And like, it takes you 1.5, 2 times the time to do something, or it could be a quality that deep down inside you need to work on. Then the opportunity are things that you enjoy doing. You just get into flow state. So flow state is when you are doing something and you lose track of time. Like it could be like
Hmm.
5 hours flew by and you're like, whoa, I just totally forgot to eat. I was so immersed in it, right? So figure out what you enjoy doing. And then the threats are the things that are threatening your body or threatening your time or mindset. So the things that you don't like doing or the qualities that you don't like to be around. It could be, for example, inauthentic people. It could be people who live in a limited mindset, right? So write out the SWOT analysis and then align and find roles in careers where your strengths and your likes or opportunities are maximized and your dislikes and your weaknesses are minimized. Because I think the biggest lie I ever learned when I was an analyst growing up in finance was you need to work on your weaknesses. You need to make your weaknesses as good as your strengths. That was the biggest lie. You need to go all in on your strengths and what you like to do, right? Because, for example, you don't tell Michael Jordan to go play golf, and you don't tell Tiger Woods to go play basketball, right? Like, you just
Actually, Michael Jordan does like to play golf.
I know, and he is. I think he's pretty decent at it. But let's
Yeah.
pick, I don't know, swimming, right? But he's still celebrated for basketball, right? And even when he went back to baseball and then came back, like, you need to just go all in on your strengths, and that's what I always say. That's how you get alignment in your career, because ultimately, you're going to be successful. You're going to make the money when you're actually in alignment with your gifts and things that you enjoy doing. Sounds pretty
Yeah.
simple, but takes the work to really sit there with yourself to figure it out.
Yep. And that SWOT analysis can change over time. So
Oh,
it's worth doing it reasonably frequently too, because as you learn and grow about yourself and have your experiences, your values might shift a little bit.
mhm. One thing I echo you. One thing I do is every year I redo my SWOT. And I would say even a time like a 2020, right, where so many pivotal things have happened, do it, I don't know, twice a year. Do it when like something happens in your life where you're like, okay, maybe I need a reset, right? There's never to your point, this is my SWOT. People evolve and hopefully you're evolving because that's the point of growing, right? And as you get more data points, it's okay to change your mind. You just know better now, so do better. That's all.
Right.
Agree with you on that. And last but not least, how do you get in alignment in your romantic relationships?
Well, there's something a very good friend of mine said, that when you feel safe, you feel sappy.
Mm, Yeah, pretty true.
So, and I would say the best romantic relationships happen when you feel both safe and excited about the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel safe with you and excited about you,
With you.
right? And if you just chase safety, you'll have a great friend. If you just chase excitement, um, you'll get yourself excitement
Yeah.
and drama.
A lot of drama. A lot of drama. Yeah, yeah. Don't we know that?
Yeah.
Agree. My thing has always been to find the person where you feel like at home, but also an adventure, right? A person that you could do both with. Super important. And I would say be crystal clear on your non-negotiables. Like, for example, you have 5 non-negotiables. And again, you need to sit there, be really honest with yourself. What are the things you really need in a partner? And if it is superficial, own it. Like, again, being authentic, right? Let's say, for example, I'm a tall girl, I'm 5'9". One of my non-negotiables is must be taller than me. I mean, that's just what it is, right? But own it and have that so that you have like say it's 5 non-negotiables, right? When you meet a person that is amazing, has all these things, whatever, but they don't have one of your non-negotiables, that's probably a check to say maybe this is not a good fit because these are non-negotiable. So I would say be crystal clear on what those are. And again, you can have feelings. You can fall in love with people who would not be a good fit, right? Emotions are emotions. But if you're looking for alignment in a life partner, you need to know what your non-negotiables are. And it's oftentimes, what do you value? Where do you want to live? Or if you want to be a nomad, right? And like, what are your what is it like, what is your level of integrity in life? I think that's super important, right? Like, what are the things that you're willing to bend on, not willing to bend on when it comes to your moral compass? I feel that is often the glue in relationships, because we can disagree about a lot of things, right? But moral compass, that's where, when I see if you don't have alignment in that, it's really hard to create a lifelong partnership.
Hmm.
So,
I think all of your points are awesome.
thank you, Ajay. Also, you also mentioned energy levels. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Where you're
Sure.
vibing.
Yeah.
Sorry, where you're.
So, if you're in a space where you feel like, oh my God, I'm not meeting the right people, or you start feeling like, oh, there are no good women out there, or there are no good men out there,
Yep.
um, that's a signal that your, the energy level of the people you want to attract is different than the energy level you're at,
Mm.
which means the
Hmm.
best thing you can do for yourself is stay single and work on yourself.
Yes, I love it.
Right? So that's go to the gym, do your emotional journal, work on your mental health and wellness, work on your physical health and wellness. And somewhere along that journey, might just meet the right person for you.
Hmm.
Um, but the best relationships happen when you are usually near the best version of yourself or at the best version of yourself. And I don't know that we're ever truly at the best version of ourselves, because it's possible that we're always bettering ourselves till the day we're dead.
Mm. So true. Yeah. I was going to add, one thing I would say is, when we say stay single, we don't mean like don't date, don't meet people. I feel, especially if you're, no, it doesn't matter. It could be introvert or extrovert, but you actually learn about yourself through people. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
will encounter people where you're like, this completely rubs me the wrong way. And you've thought about why, and it makes sense. It's like, oh, it's just not in alignment with my values, right? Or you meet
Yeah.
people who says, wait, I've never thought about this before. I actually need this quality. This might not be my person, but this is a quality that I actually really, really like. So I'm really big on, I encourage, when you haven't really figured out who you are, work on yourself, but definitely meet people, right? Like, oftentimes you
Right.
meet people, but when you're both on your journey, to your point, Ajay. So not saying like turn off your dating apps, turn off like meeting people through friends. That's not what we're suggesting. It's just, before you try to think, well, attract someone that you think you want, make sure you know who you are so that you can find the right complement for who you are. Otherwise, you're going through like, some checklist that either, you found in Cosmopolitan. I love that. I love that magazine, but either some like magazine quiz you found, right? Or just girlfriends or guy friends that who are completely different from you. So figure out what
Right.
you need for your relationship.
Well, just remember that that checklist of non-negotiables that you see in the magazine, those are most often superficial traits, and they're not related to the emotional compatibility,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And it's very rare that, and even if you own all the superficial stuff that you want, um, you need to also have that emotional compatibility,
Yep. Yep.
right? And it's totally possible to find a partner that meets all your superficial checklist and you're emotionally compatible with.
I'm 100% with you. One thing I would say is, for example, if you are a girl and you say, I just want to marry a rich man and being housewife, let's just say that's the thing, right? Own that. So you can't really expect him and you to have the emotional compatibility. You can't really always expect that he'll be loyal. You can't always respect that he'll always be there, because your non-negotiable was, I want a rich husband and get married now, right? So be very clear about your non-negotiables. And if you're only prioritizing superficial things, you can't expect meaning to come out of it because you never looked for it.
Yeah. Well, and so in the ownership of that, I think it's important to think about how will you feel
Hmm.
about that emotional compatibility, that friendship loyalty missing in
Yes,
that,
that's a good point.
right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
And so, for some people this will work, especially if they like have this amazing group of friends that they spend lots of time with,
That's a good point. Yeah.
right? And for others, they might find that a very lonely experience.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's worth knowing that about yourself before you jump in.
Yeah. That is a good point. Actually, envision yourself. I mean, I know you and I are both big on visualizing, but envisioning yourself in that position and how you would feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And journal that, right?
Yeah.
And unless those are like happy, joyous feelings, or at the very least, I can live with feelings for a long period of time, might be worth re-examining that.
Love it. Love it. So, Ajay, I just want to say thank you so much. Honestly, I am so happy that you're my first guest on
This
Align.
is such an honor. Thank you.
No, seriously, so good to have you kick this off. I want to give you the ability to connect with the audience. So how could you be helpful for the audience? What can they reach out to you about? I'm going to be sharing your contact information at the bottom of at a link at the bottom of the screen. But what are some reasons or ways that you can help the audience?
I'm always happy to help someone out, in business, in personal, in coaching. It's been a very long entrepreneurial road. And so wherever I can be helpful to someone, I'm happy to help. And in terms of, things I'm working on, there's some interesting things I have going on in the background that are very aligned, at the intersection of AI and psychology.
Hmm.
So I would say, professional conversations about AI and psychology are also awesome.
I love it. Awesome. So Ajay, I want to celebrate 3 qualities of yours that, to point about celebration, that I've seen as we've gotten to know each other better. I think first is you really are authentically you and vulnerable. And I think that's why I really wanted you to be my first guest. You're the epitome of
Thank you.
that. And you own it when you feel like you're in alignment. You own it when you're not. So I think that's awesome that you're super authentic. Secondly, you're just sharp as a tool. Like, you are just super sharp, and it's always been wonderful coming to you when I have this crazy business idea and being able to meet someone who's as wacky minded as me, but also as practical as me. So I really appreciate that. And lastly is you're just such a compassionate person. And whenever I talk to you, I never feel like you have any ulterior motive. And it's sometimes very harder to meet people like that, especially in a metropolitan city like San Francisco or New York. So I just want to say thank you for that. And I'm so excited for all the things that we're going to accomplish and solve together in life and business and psychology with people. So last but not least, what is your unique gift that serves humanity?
Um, I would say my default state is that of a golden retriever. That is the biggest gift, right? I had to learn to become the German Shepherd police dog just to protect that golden retriever side of myself.
Mm,
That's probably the biggest gift, though.
I love it. Awesome. And I feel like over time you're gonna not need that German Shepherd because you'll find your people, and you could just fully
Yeah.
be your golden retriever.
Oh, amongst my people, I am totally Doug, the golden retriever from Up.
Awesome.
I just met you and I love you.
Oh, I love it. Thank you,
So,
Ajay.
okay, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.